the sizzle right now. There's a reason why they're putting this on in the middle of the day. Two coaching titans, former adversaries who have now come to respect each other. You know, I'll tell you one thing. The Arkansas fan base was there last night. They were loud. They were proud. And, you know, I think St. John's is favored for a reason. But, yeah, this is going to be a tough one. Well, Saturday's going to be absolutely crazy.
So what is that reason? Before we get into the coaches, what do you think is the reason? Because I watched Arkansas last night, and I heard Pitino talk about Arkansas and their talent. I mean, Coach Pitino said that this will be the most talented team that St. John's will have seen all year long, and the talent of the SEC and all that stuff. We know about Coach Cal's teams historically, that he can recruit talent. You see them knock down their free throws. So in a close game, maybe I lean toward Arkansas. What makes St. John? We know what St. John's does well, but what do you think makes them favored over Arkansas? You just think they're better?
I do. They've got more depth. And by the way, you know, when Coach Pitino's saying that, I don't think he's, you know, making up the whole thing. I don't think he fully believes that. I don't agree with that. I think UConn's more talented. Now, again, forget about the record with UConn, but I think UConn's more talented. I think Baylor has a little more talent as well. You know, Arkansas, you got to remember, Boogie Flan, local kid. I know Hoff knows all about him, going to Stepinac kid. He's a freshman, and he's good. He just returned, so he was able to shake off some of that rust. They do shoot it, as most teams do, better than St. John's, but not by much. You know, Arkansas is 33% from behind the arc. St. John's right around 30-31, and those numbers have been ticking up. As I told you, they hit 14 threes last night. I think part of the reaction is that Arkansas beat a blue blood in name in Kansas, but Kansas is not that good this year. They're just not. So I'm not saying that they don't. You know, I got to see the end of that game, really the final 8-9 minutes in person. Arkansas is very long. They're very athletic. They don't have great depth. And, you know, here we go. It's the similar script. If they could avoid the slow start, which they had last night, again, it's just who they are. It's crazy. They're down 7-0. But if you fall behind, and I said this to you yesterday, against a better team, that's when you get sent packing. But I think it's a coaching advantage St. John's. I think it's a toughness advantage St. John's. I think it's a depth advantage St. John's. And I think really 1 through 8 or not, I think St. John's is better.
And are we at a spot now for you? I know we talked about this earlier in the week. Like, okay, they won the first game. Great. Everybody expected it. They go out there and crush them. They win by 30. Where are you at now with St. John's? What if they lost this game Saturday afternoon? I'm
going to give you the answer that you probably hate because I have to frame it this way. The optics matter. If they get blown out, unacceptable. If, you know, it's one of these wacky occurrences, what are you going to do? It is the tournament. No, but you gotta push through. Now, even if they didn't win because they got a win last night and they win by 30, and the last time St. John, this is amazing. I mean, I knew this, but when you hear this, it's astounding. Last night, St. John's first NCAA tournament since Rick Pitino was coaching the Celtics. That's how long it's been. So as we've discussed, and I think you've done a great job jumping in. I'm obviously involved in this, you know, as much as anybody would think. I think we've connected the dots well. I think the fringe fans know what St. John's is about and what it will mean if they were to win this next game and get to the Sweet 16. Even if they didn't, you can't take away all the checkpoints, the regular season title, the Big East championship, their first tournament win in 25 years, coach of the year, which Rick was in the country. You know, Lewis second team, bunch of first teams, all the accolades. It would feel a little, for sure, unsatisfying because you are favored, Sal. Like if St. John's loses this game, that represents a bit of an underachievement. You're favored by 7. Now, the points and the odds are what they are. It's not like, oh, you're 7 points better. It's listen, you gamble, you know the deal. It's an enticement thing. You want to pull in both sides. But I really believe St. John's is better. Now, if they get to Florida or some other teams, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they can't beat them, but I'm not saying they're better than Florida. They're better than the Razorbacks.
Right, this is probably the last. I'm not so sure that they are better. I want to see it, and you're right. I take Coach Pitino's word for it, and I'm sure that there's some, not jest in there, but, you know, throwing it on thick a little bit, just complimenting the opponent that they're about to take on tomorrow, sure. But I do believe, like, we know St. John's is limited talent-wise. Pitino said that about his own team, so we know what they do well, their heart, their hustle, their tenacity with defense, and they have improved, certainly shooting shooting the basketball, as you mentioned, but you could see the skill set in an SEC team in Arkansas, even just watching them for a few minutes or the second half of that game, whatever it may be. You could see the skill set here. And, all right, maybe UConn has as much talent or more talent, whatever, but I do think this is going to be a tough test here and really should be the final test as far as St. John's winning a game that they're supposed to, and I don't think anybody can question. I wouldn't question in any way their season, even if they would have lost last night. I understand, 20-point favorites, you got to win that game. Sure, I'm just saying it wouldn't have taken away from the great regular season and Big East tournament for me. But now this is really the last spot where they're supposed to win. And if they do win this game against Arkansas, and I'm not so sure they will, nobody can question a near perfect season regardless of what happens beyond tomorrow.
I'm with you on that, but I don't think Arkansas is more talented. I really don't. I look at, and it's different on TV. And listen, I'd be lying if I said I'm sitting there tuned into Arkansas games. I probably saw more, because I don't even know if you know this. Right before the Pitino docuseries on Vice every Tuesday at 10, they have one on John Calipari. They're doing the same thing. It's amazing how this lined up. So it's an hour of Calipari, and then it's an hour of Pitino. And I've watched more of that than I've actually watched, Arkansas playing basketball. I've watched more Razorback basketball in the last 10 days than I have all season. But I don't think they're more talented. They don't have a Kadari. They don't have somebody on that team that could get downhill and get to the rim whenever he wants like Kadari. They don't have a polished... Now Boogie Flan's going to be a top pick. Boogie Flan's going to be a superstar, I believe, in the NBA, but he's not quite yet R.J. Lewis. R.J. Lewis is 21. Boogie's a young kid, 18, 19 years old. That matters. I don't even think that they have a Zuby. Now, the other, in a game like this, generally, it's the ancillary pieces. What does Wiltshire do? What does Aaron Scott do? How do they rebound? But in terms of, their top three players, I think St. John's top three players are better.
How about the short turnaround for St. John's going from the late game last night to the 2:40? It's 2:45, right, on tomorrow?
Yeah, it's 2:45. It's the exclusive CBS window. We were talking about that, and I remember once the game was kind of in hand, I was talking to Madge, who was, two seats down to me, obviously doing the engineer, the great Madge, who also does all the Met stuff. And if you're an FAN loyalist, the great Chris Magikowski, his name is from Howie Rose and everybody else, and Gary Cohen. And I said, what do you think during a commercial? When do you think that we would play? Would it be, you think they'd put us back at night? And he actually said, and again, we're all being fed erroneous information here. He said that he spoke to somebody with one of the networks and they thought that they would be put on at night. And I said, that's interesting. I said, I actually think they're going to put them on in the middle of the day. And this one, it's not about being right. I happen to be right. I was wrong, with the late tip last night when I said that the other day. But generally Saturday viewing habits are very different. You think prime time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday, that 7, 8 o'clock window. But on a Saturday, it's different. You've got weddings, you've got functions, you've got different things going on where not everybody's available to be in front of the TV set. I know there's a lot of parents. Trust me, I'm one of them. Now, I won't be there. But, my son has a game. My daughter has practice. There's a lot of things going on during the day on Saturday. But generally, a Saturday, kick, or in the SEC at 3:30, that's why it's usually the prime spot then at night. So they look at this matchup as the 5-star platinum matchup. And I know Calipari is amazing, and he's a Hall of Famer. But let's not get this thing twisted. He's a really good coach. Rick is a great coach. Advantage St. John's coaching, no question.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go there yet. I love both these guys. I don't know if I could say definitive advantage Coach Pitino. I want to see it between these two, and I think it's what makes it a fascinating matchup here. And if Arkansas is the more talented team, then I love the challenge of who will win out. The defense, the hustle, the team play, the quality of team play, or the more talented team potentially in Arkansas. And again, who knows? I don't know. I'm just taking the coach's word for it. And also the better conference, the SEC, nobody would argue the better conference at this point than the Big East. Now you talk about a 10 seed in the tournament versus a 2 seed. We get that. And also, like you said, the Johnnies are favored in this game, but we will see tomorrow. Plenty of different angles to get into as well throughout the course of the show as far as this matchup goes tomorrow afternoon. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Jordan is in Baldwin. What's up, Jordan?
BT Sal, what's going on, guys?
How are you, Jordan?
I want to say, first of all, called you guys earlier in the week. We are now 1-0 when Sal roots for St. John's in March Madness. Thank you, Sal, for that win. That's on you. Appreciate that.
That's right. Thank you, Jordan. It's all me.
It's all you. I want to say, it's just such a huge difference. You can see Sim is shooting with confidence. RJ is shooting with confidence.
Yeah.
We're shooting with confidence. And by the way, not for nothing, those bench players came off the bench. Ruben Prey, What a shot by him coming out for the three. Like, let's go. Do be in foul trouble. Now, I always think Prey would come in like, oh, boy, here we go. Now this is where the team, like you said, BT, the depth, that's going to be our biggest piece. And the thing is, now as we go deeper into the tournament, the slow start and coming back, that's not going to play anymore. And if we get to a team like Florida, going down 7-0 in the first few minutes, that's not going to play. You can't do that. And so, Arkansas is going to be a really good test, like you guys said. SEC school, this is the first one that we're facing. Yeah. So, it's a big deal, and this is the thing that we have to take. So if we get past Arkansas, and I don't want to even look forward because winning in advance, but if we beat a team like Florida, I really don't think there's a team in the tournament that could touch us. And also, RJ Lewis, the best player on the court every time. I don't care. Intangibles, that kid is such a raw athlete, and Rick is going to have these guys buzzing. He's been preparing these guys for this moment since they went to this school. And now for the future, this is a precedent that he's setting, not for this year, for next year, for the years that he's going on. He's created a culture at St. John's that is, it's just magnetic. It pulls people here. So thank you guys again. I'll be calling you after Saturday, and let's go, Johnny.
Let's go, man. Good call there, Jordan. You talk about the culture, and boy, how evasive is it for so many of our teams? Like, the Jets are trying to change the culture. The Giants are trying to change the culture. The Mets did change their culture. Yankees' culture has always been pretty good. Rangers are going to have to change their culture. God almighty, Rangers. We'll get to them later. And Knicks, jeez. So the culture has been very evasive for a lot of our teams, particularly St. John's. And, these are the building blocks, and you stack things, and you build mental fortitude, and you build out a roster, you build out an expectation. And I'm telling you, St. John's, like, I don't know if they will win, but their players fully expect to go, like, they think they're going to the Sweet 16. They think they're winning the championship.
Well, that's a point that the caller brought up, BT, that I wanted to ask you, because I could see it. You've been around this team all year long. It does feel like they're a much more confident group. Now, obviously, to have success, you have to be confident. But to really be confident, you have to have some form of success. And now the Johnnies have tasted success, finishing off the regular season, finishing off the Big East tournament, now dominating in their first round matchup when everybody expected it, and they did. I mean, are you seeing the confidence, whether it's Lewis, whoever it may be, or just in the team in general? Have you seen a growth in confidence from even, let's say, a month ago to where they're at right now?
I have, and I've also seen a growth in chemistry. Anybody, I'm going to correlate it to us hacks, our weekend warriors. Like, there's always a benchmark. Like, if you play golf, and I know you played a couple times last summer, you're getting back into it, which is great. But if you're trying to break 100 and like you're 102, 103, as you get down the stretch, you start counting up those numbers on the scorecard. Or if 90's your bench, or 80, whatever the benchmark is, you get there and you're like, all right, if I par this and I bogey that, I'm under 90 or I'm under 100. But until you do it, you can't feel it. You can't expect to do it. And then generally, once you do it once, you might not do it the next 5 times in a row, but you are freed up mentally. And once you're freed up mentally, now you're freed up physically to let your gifts flow. So yeah, I do think that they needed a couple of these benchmarks, the championships, both the regular season, the conference, the Big East tournament. These are things where, it certainly galvanizes the fan base, Sal, but it reinforces the messaging from Pitino.
One thing I was thinking too, hearing you talk about it for the last couple of days, and then me as well. I think we have to have this question answered by tomorrow. Is it Calipari or Calipari? Because you say Coach Calipari, and I say Calipari. I've heard it both ways. Can you, are you definitely right, or you're just going off of what you thought?
I don't know if I'm right. I'll be honest with you. I really don't know. And by the way, I've gone back and forth over the years myself. I think I finally settled on Calipari because it sounds like calamari. I don't know. I mean, it's a weird. I got to ask him. I'll get the answer.
Well,
for
there you go. You could. Are you going to talk to him before the game? You got to find out tonight, maybe tomorrow. Hoff, what have you gone with? Maybe you could break the tires. Is it Coach Calipari or Coach Calipari?
I say John Calipari.
Yeah, interesting. Dove, what do you say?
Pari.
So all three of you say Pari. I've always said Coach Calipari. I mean, so maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, but I have the hard R's all the time, so I can't.
Maybe we can get that confirmed because that is a bit like Pitino. No, everybody knows what it is. CeeLo, you have this. You're the expert here.
I'm not an expert. I have a quick story. I was doing updates over at the network down the hallway there years ago, and I said Calipari on the air.
Yeah.
And Doug Gottlieb here at the time, quick to correct me. It's Calipari, not Calipari.
Oh, look at that!
He was not happy that I said Calipari. So I'm not. That's not me knocking BT. I'm just telling you.
Well, it's not just BT. It's Hoff and
Dove. Well, Doug Gottlieb felt very strongly about Calipari, and that's his guy.
No, it was good for Doug.
And with
what's his
that,
coaching record?
I'll show myself out of the studio.
No, thank you, Seal, for clarifying that. Yeah, I don't know why. I've always either heard Calipari or said Calipari, and then you were saying Calipari, and I'm like, man, which one is it? Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
This. Who knows?
What did Francesa say? He used to have him on all the time.
I think just Coach Cal. I mean,
there you go.
or maybe Calipari, because I got it from somewhere, and it wasn't me watching these games. It was probably from the reason why I love Coach Cal is because he was on with Mike and Chris all those years, or Mike even after Dog left. I love his personality. Both these guys, BT. It's hard for me because I wish this was like normally if St. John's weren't involved, I would always pick, to a fault at times, especially with Kentucky, pick Coach Cal's teams to go to the Final Four, win the championship, whatever. So even him at Arkansas, maybe I wouldn't have picked him to win the final, to get to the Final Four or win the whole thing, but I would have picked him to go a decent way. And now they're meeting tomorrow, and I don't like this because I love Pitino even more.
Well, and this is really rare because most of the big names and coaches are out, and we've talked about this. Boeheim got old and Calhoun got older, and a bunch of people said it's not for me anymore, whether it's Brad Stevens and some of the personalities, and these are two of the last remaining titans. You still got Izzo, and Izzo say whatever he wants into a hot mic, which we appreciate. There's a rawness with these coaches. There's a transparency because, hey, they've accomplished everything. They got a ton of money in the bank. They know who they are. They know where they've been, and it's no false pretense. It's not like just, regurgitated coach speak. You get some sizzle with these guys, and back in the day it was always like that with Roley and of course Louie, and not just the Big East, but all the coaches that just had a different profile and a different presence. Those names and those figures are being phased out either on their own or because they're just getting older. And we got two titans here, and Saturday's going to be wild, man.
And one question I want to ask when we come back, and there are many layers to this game. We'll get into other stuff as BT mentioned. Knicks, Rangers, what has happened at the world's most famous arena, 888-808-1019. But usually in every great matchup, there's a good guy and there's a bad guy. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy in tomorrow's matchup with Pitino and Coach Cal? And also, is there a negative in St. John's having the success that they've had so far? We can get to that as well. Hey, and also Pizzagate Part 2, BT. We're going to rectify some things on this Friday. Just getting started. BT and Sal on the Fan.